Hi there, thanks for joining me. I'm Harlan, and this is my story. Zen and the Art of Overspray, a bodyman's wild ride, a bodyman's journey through cars, chaos, and the search for something like wisdom, one story at a time. Prologue. There's something about the smell of fresh paint and the hum of a shop fan that settles a man's soul, at least it does for me. I've spent a lifetime in this world of metal, filler, and lacquer, not because I was drawn to cars, but because I was drawn to the work, the art, the alchemy of turning something wrecked into something whole again. This isn't just a story about cars or bodywork. This is a story about a life lived at full throttle, about lessons learned the hard way, sometimes through the grind of the shop floor, sometimes through the haze of late nights, fast women, and bad decisions. It's about the people who shaped me, the ones I ran with, worked alongside, and sometimes ran from. It's about the journey from reckless youth to a man who finally found his zen, not in the stillness of meditation, but in the rhythm of a paint gun, the perfect flow of a clear coat, and the satisfaction of a job done right. These stories are real, at least as real as memory allows. The names have been changed, the details may have blurred over time, but the lessons remain. So sit back, listen close, and maybe you'll see a little of yourself in these tales. If not, at least you'll get a hell of a ride. In a world where everything rusts, some things, memories, friendships, and the pursuit of a craft, only get stronger with time. Chapter 1: Rust and Beginnings. The first time Wyatt Sanders laid eyes on the old man, he wasn't impressed. The shop was a small, weathered building tucked behind an old gas station, with a single roll-up door and a flickering neon sign that read, Harlan's Custom Fabrication. It wasn't much to look at, but Wyatt knew the name. Everyone in the local car scene did. Harlan Tate was a legend, one of those old-school builders who could turn a rusted-out shell into a showstopper. Wyatt had spent the last year hacking together his dream truck, a 1956 Chevy pickup he'd picked up as a rolling chassis. He had the eye for design, the passion, and a growing reputation on social media. What he didn't have, he was starting to realize, was the experience to get it structurally right. That's why the truck was here. You're Wyatt, right? Harlan asked, wiping his hands on a grease-stained rag as he stepped out from behind a stripped-down '32 Ford coupe. He was in his 60s, his hair more silver than black, with a beard that looked like steel wool. His eyes were sharp, though, not the kind that missed much. Yeah, Wyatt said, shoving his hands in his pockets. Brought my truck. Harlan took a slow walk around the Chevy, his calloused fingers tracing the edges of the metalwork. He crouched, ran a hand under the frame, and let out a quiet grunt. You do this bracing yourself? Wyatt nodded, bracing for what was coming. Harlan sighed, standing up with a creak in his knees. You ever hear the phrase, measure twice, cut once? Wyatt crossed his arms. Yeah, why? 'Cause it don't look like you did either. Wyatt's jaw clenched. He expected criticism, but not like this. Look, I ain't some hack. I put a lot of work into this. I'm not saying you didn't, Harlan replied. I'm saying some of it ain't gonna hold up once you put real weight on it. That cross member, gonna flex under torque. These welds, pretty, but they're not deep enough. And this cab mount, if you hit a hard enough pothole, it might just leave the rest of the truck behind. Wyatt stared at him, fists tightening. He should have told the old man to screw off. Should have said he'd take it somewhere else. But he didn't. Instead, he exhaled and muttered, So what should I have done? Harlan gave him a long look, then instead of mocking him, he walked over to a workbench, grabbed a scrap of tubing, and picked up his welder. Watch. And just like that, everything changed. Chapter 2: Lessons in Steel. The shop was quiet, except for the hum of the welder. Harlan moved with the steady confidence of a man who had done this 1,000 times before. He lined up the tubing, set the torch to the perfect angle, and let the arc do its work. Wyatt watched, arms still crossed, but his eyes betrayed him. He was paying attention. You see that? Harlan asked without looking up. Wyatt didn't answer at first. He didn't want to give the old man the satisfaction, but curiosity got the better of him. What, the way you're stacking the welds? Harlan gave a slight nod. Yeah, but more than that, it ain't just about laying beads. It's about penetration, strength. You ever see a weld that looks real pretty but cracks under stress? Yeah, Wyatt admitted. I've had a few do that. That's 'cause you were welding for looks, not structure. You gotta read the metal, let it tell you what it needs. Too much heat, you weaken it. Too little, it won't hold. Watch again. Wyatt watched, and this time he noticed the small details. The way Harlan's movements were smooth and deliberate, the way he listened to the sizzle of the arc, adjusting his speed like a musician keeping time. When Harlan finished, he flipped up his hood and knocked on the weld with a gloved hand. Now that's gonna hold. Wyatt stepped closer, inspecting it. He ran his fingers over the bead. It wasn't just clean, it was solid, functional. "All right," Wyatt muttered, "I see the difference." Harlan smirked. "Good. Now, you want to learn, or are you just here to let me fix your mess?" Wyatt hesitated. He wasn't sure what it was, the way Harlan talked, the way he worked, but something about it made him want to stay. "Yeah," he said finally. "I want to learn." Harlan tossed him a pair of gloves. "Then grab the torch. Let's see what you can do."